Hello and welcome back to the Azure Terraformer. Today I have a code review from one of my code ninjas, Abdul. The way these code reviews work is basically, if you want me to review your code, all you have to do is open a PR on GitHub and assign it to me. It might help to ping me on Discord to let me know that it's in my hopper, but that's pretty much all that you got to do. Now, if you are part of the Code Ninja program, you get priority access to my code reviews, which means you go to the front of the line. So if you'd like to have these old eyes looking at your Terraform code, doesn't even have to be Azure Terraform code, but I mean, that is kind of the name of the channel here. But I've done code reviews on this channel for Terraform providers I haven't even looked at. I've never even used them before, right? The same principles of module design apply, no matter what platform that you're targeting. Now, of course, there may be certain provider-specific nuances that you might want to be aware of, or platform-specific idiosyncrasies, which are always helpful, but I'll do what I can. I've got quite a bit of experience under my belt with Azure, AWS, and GCP, so if you throw anything my way within either of those wheelhouses, I think we'll be all right. But of course, my favorite cloud is Azure, so there's always going to be a special place in my heart for Azure Terraformer code. So anyways, if you're interested in that, smash that join button and hop on the Azure Terraformer train by joining as a code ninja. You'll get access to our dojo within the Azure Terraformer Discord, where we can work more closely together. And of course, you'll get priority access to these code reviews in the future. So check that out. Anyways, let's get down to what Abdul's working on here. So here's the pull request. He says, I hope you're doing well. When you have some time, could you please review this code? Oh, he's so polite, Abdul, that guy. What a great guy. I've been working on it and provide any feedback or improvements. Specifically, I'm trying to use the for each indexes in Terraform. I'm dealing with a scenario where the relationship between scope, identity, and role is many to many, and I'm struggling to figure out the best candidate for the for each index. I need to ensure the index remains unique across different assignments and doesn't result in duplicates. Interesting. Any insights or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Thanks in advance for your help, Abdul. Abdul, what a polite guy. Gee whiz. Like, if I were to get pull requests that have that kind of a description every day, I would die a happy man. Let me tell you, like, how sweet is that? Anyways, so yeah, let's get started here. Let me pop over into the files changed here and let's go take a look. Okay, so first of all, I'm seeing some dirty here. I got a lock file. I don't like this. Here we go. So we definitely want to have lock files added to the Gitignore. There is a kind of standard Gitignore that I use, which, you want to hit anything that's got a basically */ .terraform star. So that's going to catch any of these like wacky lock files or anything like that. You want to capture */ .terraform /star. So basically anything in that hidden Terraform directory, you don't want to check that in as well. So yeah, Gitignore etiquette is a thing, folks. You got to make sure you set up your Gitignore files properly. Not bad. I mean, he actually wrote pretty decent documentation. It looks like it's handcrafted. Like he's not even using Terraform docs, I gotta give him props for that. Like props. Yeah, so you definitely want to, use Terraform docs to generate the boilerplate. Maybe he did, but this does not look like Terraform docs output to me. Of course, it is highly customizable, so I guess it's possible, but this definitely does not smell like like regular output. It just feels kind of handcrafted. Now I'm pausing because he has like these requirements which almost I almost never see anybody like hand rolls their own documentation. I almost this is one of those things that people always omit, right? Is like the provider and Terraform versions, right? I love that he's using Terraform 1.9. That's my favorite version because it has the input variable validation. Oh my gosh, it's an amazing thing. Oh, and he's on 4.0. That's awesome. So sick. Way to go. Okay, I'm done. I'm done looking the README. So we have this custom role definition thing in here, so this looks like a very generic module. We got, looks like a lot of, basically this is what I would consider like a pass through, right? Like when you see a resource and every single attribute is var dot 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 var dot, like basically it's like, okay, we are pretty much just doing a pass through wrapper. The question is, are we adding any value, right? Are we adding constraints that the resource by itself doesn't have? Like right off the bat, you can see here, we're locking this to, why would we even pass in a single scope? Actually, probably gonna have to go RTFM on this role definition here just to see what this scope thing is. I think that scope would be a single string, so I'm not even sure why it would. So there's an assignable scopes, which is an array. That's interesting. So, oh yeah, here we go. So scope, yeah. So the scope is a single attribute, which is what he's doing here. I'm not sure. So assignable scopes is an array, and it looks like maybe the idea was like we would eventually support this assignable scope. Oh, I see what's happening here. So he is passing in this assignable scopes, but he's just taking index 0 and dropping it into the scope. Now, is that even how it's supposed to work, right? The scope at which the role definition applies to. Okay. So you could pass in like a specific subscription. Okay, so a role definition in Azure is basically like a template for permissions that you would like to create role assignments with, right? So if you want to have a custom set of permissions, to dictate what users can and can't do, you create a role definition. And then when you want to link that to identities, you create a role assignment. So it looks like this scope here is basically saying, all right, I want this role definition to be accessible within the following scope. Like I guess we could set this at, potentially management group level. Yep, we could set it at a management group or at a subscription level. And presumably that would mean that the role definition is not even going to show up as an option if you're not in the subscription, or if you're in a subscription that's not in this management group, right? It is recommended to use the first entry of the assignable scopes, and changing this forces a new resource to be created. Okay, so that kind of coincides with the logic that we're seeing here. So the recommendation is you pass in this collection of assignable scopes and you take the first index here. Okay, yeah, makes sense. So in that sense, this logic, even though it's very kind of seemingly redundant, right? He is adding a little bit of value in that recommended approach is basically he's forcing you to do that, which I like. I like that a lot. So at first blush, this just appeared like a resource wrapper module, but this is adding some value, albeit meager value, but still some value. So I do like that. Now the question, this begs the question, is this value, right, enough to justify creating a module for this, right? Because, you look at this, there's not a lot going this module. Like it's essentially a resource wrapper. So I don't know. I'm kind of wavering. I think we'll get into this, but let me just leave some comments here. So yeah, the main benefit of this is that he does simplify the interface of the module. The module has a simpler interface. You don't have to pass a scope and an assignable scopes. You pass in the assignable scopes, and he does the work of figuring all this stuff out for you. So I'm torn. I'm absolutely torn. I do want to point out. So at this point, I could go either way, right? I mean, I'm definitely leaning towards no module, but I'm just gonna put this in the parking lot and I'll revisit this later. Okay, that's fine. So if he's gonna do the module, that's fine. He's presumably doing 1.9 because. Let me just shut down like some of these files that I've already looked at. I don't need to see this. I don't need to see this. And I don't need to see this. So presumably he's actually using 1.9. Not sure if he is. So role definition. So his module does add some additional value in terms of the input validation. Okay. Not sure if the resource doesn't do that, but we'll see. Might be valuable. I don't like how the names are completely redundant. Like, why do we have role definition? Naming. I'm just going to call this like a naming nit. So in this type of situation, I typically recommend like, don't be captain redundant. Right? If the name of the module is custom role definition module, then when I instantiate this thing, I know it's a role definition, right? Which means all of the input variables don't need to have the redundant prefix of role definition. The mere fact that that attribute, this name attribute, is being set on a module block that is a source, which has a source of custom role definition, implies that the name is the name of the role definition, right? That's implicit. So I don't need to do that. And I would probably repeat that everywhere here, right? Yeah. So this is a 1.9 Nick, right? And I don't think there's definitive guidance on this yet, but like if you're already using 1.9, like, why hard code nasty regular expressions inside of this condition statement when you could just as easily declare a local and have it very easy to spot, right? So that would be my recommendation. I'm still evolving my viewpoint on this, so I could be convinced otherwise. However, for me, this is more of a readability thing, right? Just look at this, right? Like, is that easy to read? Like looking at this regex string that's embedded in a can regex, like nested, function expression. Not super easy to read if we're really being honest with each other, right? So let me type this up. Yeah. So my current thinking is for common validation variables or expressions or logic that I only use in validation blocks. If I'm drawing a dependency on the 1.9 on Terraform 1.9.0, then I should just go all the way and like use it, right? Which means I can stop doing kind of painful things like creating ridiculously nasty condition expressions, right? Because I can now store parts of that expression in a different location, right? Now, this is a line that I often have to walk, right? It's a judgment call, right? When should I hard code something inline versus when should I bust it out as a local and put it in a separate file, right? Because you'll see me do this and make this recommendation on my channel a lot. I'll be like, no, don't. Everything doesn't need to be a local, because now you're just kind of like indirecting everywhere, right? And as a developer, as a future author, right, I have to go look at your code, and I can't just like look at one line and know what it does. Now I have to go look at that line and then go find every single local wherever the hell it is in your source code in order to like do the math in my head. That sucks, right? So you definitely have to walk a line about how much indirection you want to do. But I think in this case, the benefit of getting this nasty regular expression out of this nested function block in this conditional statement outweighs the potential complexity of indirection, because number one, it's a single variable, it's a regular expression. Regular expressions are already nasty as AF, right? So like anytime you want somebody to go look at a regular expression, make sure that's all that they're looking at, because their mind will explode. Okay, so that would be my recommendation here. Reasoning. There we go. Okay, I think the same feedback for all of these things. The assignable scope. So the prefix is always going to be the same. I'm not going to repeat myself. Yeah, I guess you always have to have at least one. Makes sense. So now this, okay. So his permissions block, notice we're making good use of an object with optionals, right? That default to empty strings. So basically we're going to default to empty strings if we don't specify this, which I like that. So that means I can create a permissions object. I can have only actions on it, or I can only have not actions on it, or, yada, 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 keep going, right? So this allows me to kind of random access which attributes on this object that I want to set. I think this is an excellent use of, an object. So I'm in full support of this. Now the validation, what are we doing here? So we're saying if the length of my actions is greater than 0, or the length of my data actions is greater than 0. Okay, so I'm basically saying I have to at least have a data action, or I have to have a action. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I like it. I'm just gonna say I'll give positive feedback here, right? Nice use of optional. I like it. Good job. And then what do we got here? We got good logic. Good logic. I like it. Let's minimize that. Okay. So now we're getting into the actual stuff that he's working on. Oh boy, wow, this is like getting a little wild and crazy. Very interesting. What are we doing here? So we have some data sources. So RBAC custom roles. Role definition. Azure RBAC custom roles. That's the name of the object. So we're referencing role definition, and we're referencing this local. So custom role resource lock administrator. I don't know what this is. But we're getting a reference to this thing. This thing has to exist already. Yeah. Now, okay. I just now figured out what's going on here. It's a lot more complex than it really needs to be, and that's because he's using an unstable iterator. Okay, he's actually building a map in line on the for each meta argument, which sent my brain into a tizzy. Let me tell you. Okay, you probably saw that. Okay, so I would highly recommend using stable iterator references. Essentially, do not hard code for expressions on the meta argument itself. Count or for each. Create a local and reference it. Oftentimes, you need to reuse the local on multiple resource data source blocks anyway. Does that make sense, right? So basically what I'm saying is he is right here, he is dynamically creating a map so that he can do a for each. And he's just getting the name. Basically, he has a list of names. He's turning it into a map to make it a little bit more stable, but he is doing an inline for expression to generate the map. All I'm saying is, okay, you want to use for each, that's cool. You want to use a list because it's less verbose than a map, that's also cool. But don't use an embedded expression, an embedded for expression. Just create a local that encapsulate that for expression and say, I don't know, role maps or something like that. Like he could literally do it on line 8 here, or line 9, right after line 8, right? Yeah, I mean, that pretty much takes care of it. I think I'm going to have to leave this open. So now let's see if this pattern continues. So this is a different data source. Okay, so we're on RBAC identities. I think we just got RBAC custom roles. So we got AD groups. And so these look like display names. Azure owner, Azure reader. And then we got service principals. These look like well-known service principals that he has. And then he's got Azure AD users. Okay. So we are bifurcating based on the identity type that we're using here. I'm jumping ahead, but like this local is going to be used to iterate over the corresponding Azure AD resource or data source, right? So go get me the groups, for these groups. Go get me the service principals for these service principals, right? Yada, yada, yada. Okay, I get that. I don't see the corresponding user equivalent. Maybe he just decided not to do that. Is this being used? Maybe not in this file. Okay. So we're trying to get, these data sources together. Okay. So now we have these management group which I don't like. What is, so Azure and management groups. Okay, so we're getting for each to set like these management groups and each dot value. I mean, this is okay to me, right? I mean, that's not as bad as like an inline for expression. So I'm okay with that. It's interesting he's using to set here and a for expression previously. So I'm not sure why he's going with this approach versus the inline for expression over here. I'll ask that question. Why are you doing to set here when you are using inline for expressions for groups and SPs? Azure subscriptions, okay. So now role assignment definitions. Oh boy. Oh boy. So we're trying to create role assignment definitions, role assignments for the management groups. These locals are used by the Azure RBAC role assignments.tf or Azure RBAC role. I'm very confused by these. Oh, mod RBAC role assign. This naming convention's a little foreign to me. Like, I don't know if I like prefixing data and locals and mod. You know, I don't. It just seems confusing to me. I've never seen this before. Of course, I've seen people use locals, but like, I don't know. It seems like I'm not sure what to call it, but like unnecessarily tied to the the type of blocks, right? You see a lot of people like organize their code based off of the functionality, right? Like identity stuff goes into one thing, like scope stuff goes into scope stuff, management group stuff goes into management group stuff, but like prefixing it with like either the sole or dominant block type seems a little bit much to me. Not a big fan. Also, introducing a prefix like this makes it hard to read, because now we got this nice consistent naming convention of AZU-RBAC is jagged, right? Like I can't, it was even hard for me as my eyes wandered across this vertical space to like key in on like this mod AZU-RBAC role assignments, because like I was looking for AZU-RBAC, but like it kind of bounces back and forth horizontally. So having, if you're going to have prefixes like that, you know, try and keep them with consistent like lengths, like he's done with AZU-RBAC, right? That is a consistent length. You will not get jagged, like, I guess, ordered lists of files here, right? Something to think about. So we're looks like we're like defining the blocks as locals, and then we're probably going to iterate over this when we go create role assignments, I'm guessing. Yeah, so definitely remove orphan code. I'm gonna minimize, yeah, more orphan code. Okay. So this is my module. So I'm referencing my local module for my custom role definition, and I'm setting the scopes. So the scope is going to my management. So I have to access. Oh, that's fun. So I have to access the data.azure RM management group MG using this key. Oventive. Does that map to any of these like keys here? Oh, it's probably up in the management groups. Oh yeah, here we go. So we have this. Wow. Oh yeah. So this is our data source for our management group. So here's like I would expect Oventive to be in there. What? Where is it? Where the hell is that? Azure RM management group MG Oventive. Like where is that? That must be a key somewhere. Yeah, something's jacked up here. Like, I'm not sure. I guess shouldn't this have? It appears to be referenced explicitly. Yeah. Interesting. Seems kind of jacked up. Okay, so I'm down to my module. So we have all these locals. I'm down to my modules. Let's see what's going on. This is all just boilerplate. I don't really need to look at that. Boilerplate. Okay, I don't need to look at that. So remove orphan code. Don't like orphan code. I don't want to look at it. It's a waste of my time. Okay, so now we have MG assignments. So here he is trying to, for each, again, using like a avoid using unstable iterator references, i.e. a nested for expression. It's not so great. So, because the key, right, the key presumably is going to have to match something. So what are we iterating over? We're iterating over our local collection, and we want to create the I and the assignment. So what is the I? So that's the index. So we have an index 0, 1, 2, 3, and then the assignment object itself. Yeah, not sure why we would do that. I don't know what this is. Is this like a... So this is somebody else's module. I have to go look at this now. I don't know whose module this is. Browse modules. Presumably this is what? Oh, see, we're hitting my knowledge of HCP Cloud. So this must be some private module that he has. Cloud Monkey, you know, I love it. Cloud Monkey. So this is some private module. I presume this is some private module repository in your HCP Cloud. Okay. And now what we're doing, so I don't know what this role is, okay, it's a role assignment. So presumably, right, I know what a role assignment does, right? Like a role assignment has a scope and a principal, right? A name and an ID, right? Like, let's go role assignment. Okay. So, this is what we're looking at, right? Now, clearly we're doing a custom role assignment. Okay. So this appears, let me cancel this. So this thing appears to be doing, this module appears to be creating role that you created. Yeah, and I think that's what's happening here. So the role definition ID, each role definition type. So if the role definition type is custom role, then get the role definition ID. If not, use null. If the role definition type is a built-in role, then use the name. Okay. And so presumably on MG role assignments, I got to go look at that. MG role assignments. Sometimes I'm going to use the built-in role. Okay. And a name. Built-in role name. Okay. Built-in. They're all built in. Okay. They're all built in. But presumably he's going to want to do both built-in and custom role definitions. That's what I'm guessing is about to go happen, right? Maybe that's what he's trying to show here, right? So he's trying to create a custom role resource lock. So this is a custom role definition with the scope of some management group and blah, 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 blah. These are the actions. Okay, so presumably, you want to create many custom role definitions. Okay. Yeah. So I think I probably should go review what he said again. So actually it looks like the Orphaned code that I ignored, I don't know. I'm uncertain if he wants me to look at the commented out code, because it really seems like this is all stemming from either using built-in or custom role definitions at the management group level, because I'm only seeing a role assignment at the management group level. That's what this is, right? We're creating role assignments at the management group level. And we are basically, the indexer I is going to be a number. It's going to be the integer of that item's index within that list, which is MG role assignments, right? So it seems like he's trying to merge two lists together that are heterogeneous, right? One of those lists is going to be, currently it's just a bunch of built-in roles. And then presumably another list is going to be a bunch of custom roles. And he wants to kind of zip those all together and just have one iteration across these MG assignments. Yeah. But he wants to have a unique index. Yeah. It's hard to say like what I mean, a role assignment, the primary key of a role assignment is a combination of the scope, the role definition name, and the principal. That's it. Now, I think what he's trying to do is he doesn't want to accidentally create duplicate role assignments within the same scope for the same user, for the same identity. Here's the principal for the same scope with the same role definition. Now, in this case, it's like a built-in role, right? So I think the easiest thing to do, and this is going to take probably some pretty nasty refactoring. I think what he should do is I would split first of all, like, what is the point of iterating off of this collection? I mean, does it make you feel better that you're iterating over a hard-coded collection of objects? Right? Do you see what's happening here? Like, he's going through all this work to try and make some fancy iteration. Right? But he's essentially, in this file, he's essentially hard-coded the structure of the role assignments. So, like, why even iterate? If you're okay with having a block that's an object in an array, then why aren't you okay with a block that is your module? That just is a single instance of your module and you legitimately just pass in these values. Like, what's the difference? Okay, that would be one thing that I would say. Is like a critique of the design. Like, why make it complex? So basically what I'm saying is iteration on top of that point, right? Of like, if we're let me save this. If we're hard coding it here, right? Like we're literally hard coding the objects here. I mean, I could do a search and replace every curly with a module definition. Okay. Now, there's really no difference between constructing hard-coded objects and constructing hard-coded module blocks, and then at all. Other than the hard-coded module blocks is easier to read, easier to maintain, but less elegant. So maybe as developers, like, we feel like we're lesser of a developer because we go the easy way and it doesn't feel dry enough, right? But we got to remember, in infrastructure as code, we got to optimize for readability, maintainability, right? Flexibility, like being able to change things without having everything tightly coupled together. So if you're trying to couple things together for the sole purpose of iterating in an elegant fashion, just so you can pat yourself on the back and say, wow, isn't that slick? I use that iterator. I don't copy pasta. You are copying pasta. right? It almost feels like we're at the HCL Olympics, right? And it's really just about proving how awesome we are at HCL rather than like maintaining the infrastructure as code, or rather than like creating highly maintainable, highly readable like infrastructure as code. So that's my take right now. And could we come up with a way to iterate? Yeah. I think we could. But my recommendation is to like get that out of your head. Like, don't even iterate. Right? You're not iterating. You are, unless what he's trying to tell me is like, I want to eventually remove this object block. Yeah. And unless he says, Mark, I want to eventually remove this hard-coded object array, and iterate in some other way, right? And dynamically create the objects based on role definitions, which I don't think, I think what he really wants to do is he has some built-in roles, and he wants to be able to have flexibility to assign built-in roles to certain management groups, to certain identities within certain management groups. And he wants to be able to assign certain custom role definitions to certain identities within the context of certain management groups. I don't think you need to go through an iteration process to get that done. I think the iteration process is actually hurting you. Hashtag unpopular opinion. I guess we'll find out. Anyways, I think that's it. I think that's it for me. That wraps up this code review. What do you think? Do you agree with my take on, this? Where are we? On this essentially logic. This code is logically equivalent with just a bunch of module blocks for role assignments. Right? So like, why go through the hassle of constructing these hard-coded object blocks? Why not just create individual module blocks and move on with life? That's my take. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Am I stupid? Am I a genius? Am I somewhere in between? Let me know. Keeping it simple, stupid. That's my motto. Interesting take. Let's, we'll see what Abdul has to say about my response here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyways, that's it for this code review. This is the Azure Terraformer signing off.